Welcome back. Thom Hartmann here with you. Jex Blackmore, the reproductive rights spokesperson for the Satanic Temple. TheSatanicTemple.com is the website. You can tweet Jex at Jex Blackmore, Jex Blackmore, or at Satanic Psalms with a P, SATANICPSALMS. Jex, welcome to the program.
Thank you.
So glad to have you with us. You folks are doing some really cool stuff in Missouri. Tell me about this.
Well, for the last 2.5 years, we have been battling with the state of Missouri over a lawsuit that we filed against the Attorney General and the governor, claiming that we should have the right to use religious exemption forms to be exempted from mandated 72-hour waiting period and from receiving informed consent booklets if one of our members wants to get an abortion in the state. So
what you're arguing is that the state law that requires the 72-hour waiting period and the ultrasounds and all this stuff, that's a violation of your religious freedom, and therefore you should be exempt from that law. Is that, am I boiling it down well?
Yeah, that's correct. Satanic Temple has a set of 7 tenets that are fundamental to our belief system, and 2 of those tenets are that the body is inviolable, subject to one's own will alone, and the other is that we make decisions about our life and certainly decisions about our health solely relying on the best scientific information available to us. So when Missouri mandates a 72-hour waiting period, it's in direct violation with those deeply held beliefs because there's no medical reason to impose a waiting period such as that, and there's also no medical reason to force women to receive information that says that life begins at conception, which is also a state-promoted belief.
Right. In fact, the brochure that women have to read that the state publishes says, you know, life begins at conception. It's interesting, Jex, that the Supreme Court in 1973 basically ruled that the tissue in a woman's womb, until it's viable, is basically her. It's an extension of her body. It's her property. She can do with it as she chooses. She can choose to have an abortion or not. You know, in the first trimester easily, in the second trimester with some difficulties, and in the third trimester only in the case of an emergency, because then it's viable. That pretty much is the position of the Satanic Temple, isn't it?
That's correct. So the issue really comes up with the fact that the Supreme Court did say that the states can take measures to protect what they perceive as potential life. So it does allow them to impose certain regulations, and the question is how far that those regulations can go before they start to really impose on a woman's constitutional right to obtaining an abortion.
Right.
So you see them pushing that bar every day.
Yeah, and this constant mantra that life begins at conception, which is really a Catholic teaching. It's not, you know, a science teaching. You know, clearly, you know, a zygote begins at conception, or a fertilized ovum begins at conception, I suppose. But you know, these cells were all alive to begin with, and you know, anyhow, that's a whole long thing. But tell us about the Satanic Temple. You guys are not just sitting around with black candles chanting incantations to Satan, are you?
No. So, I mean, we do have a ritual practice that is defined by our members, but we are a non-theistic religious organization. So we have all the defining features of a religion, such as a shared set of tenet beliefs, an aesthetic, ritual practice, and a community, minus the God element and minus any form of supernaturalism. So it's under those. So we use Satan as a kind of role model and a figure through the personification of Satan in literary text and cultural text as a rebel against tyranny, as a champion of free thinking, to kind of formulate our philosophy and outlook on life.
That's great. So with regard to the case in Missouri, you're in the middle of the litigation, is that correct?
That's correct.
Are you doing this in other states?
Not at the moment. You know, this is a very expensive endeavor for us because we do not have pro bono legal help, so we are focused on this one case at the moment, although I know that we are interested in pursuing it in other places if possible. It's just, you know, we've been doing this now for 2.5 years, and we are still arguing on whether or not we have standing. So we haven't even had the opportunity to argue on the merits of our cases, which is what we're hoping the Supreme Court will allow us to do.
And the standing would be determined by the court deciding whether or not you're an actual religion, or would it be determined by the role of women? What's the standing issue?
Yeah, so in the United States, the way that it works, if you have an issue with a constitutional issue, it says that a person cannot bring a suit challenging the constitutionality of a law unless the plaintiff can demonstrate that she is or will eminently be harmed by the law. So basically the state's saying she already had her abortion, so she's not incurring any more future harm, which makes it and so therefore the case should be dismissed. But it makes it very difficult because, of course, you can't predict if someone's going to need an abortion in the future.
Right.
And there's only a specific time frame that you can even challenge this, because you can't get, there's a time frame for which you can get an abortion legally. So our attorney is saying that the harm has already been incurred by the process of imposing shame and guilt upon Mary Doe. And we're trying to use that as a basis so that we can actually move forward. To
remedy that harm. One of the things that first put you folks, thesatanictemple.com, on my radar screen was, and the first time we had, I don't think it was you, it was somebody else on this program, was several years ago, and it had to do with, beg your pardon, Sean? Oh, it was Lucian, right. And it had to do with Judge Roy Moore and his Ten Commandments statues. I'm not sure it was specifically Roy Moore, but it was that whole movement across the country to put Ten Commandment statues and religious statues on government property. Are you all still doing that?
Yeah, we are. We're pursuing that goal in Arkansas right now. We have other people kind of challenging Ten Commandments monuments on state property around the country. We do something similar also in the holiday season with religious displays on government property. And I think that, luckily, it's been the Supreme Court of each state have been opposing the imposition of a privately funded Ten Commandments monument on state property, and they've been doing a lot of the work for us, but we want to make it clear that if that doesn't happen, that we will also be there to take advantage of the religious liberty that's being extended to Christians. Right,
and the way you guys provoke this is by saying, hey, if you want to have a Ten Commandments statue on government property, put our Satan statue next to it. Is that right?
Correct. Yeah, I mean, it's our belief that religion should stay out of the government completely, but if that's not going to be something that we are practicing, then at least there should be a diversity of religious viewpoints represented by our government rather than a single viewpoint. It makes perfect sense. We have about a minute until we're going to hit a break here, Jex. In that minute, can you tell us, thesatanictemple.com, do you have groups around the country? How can people learn more about it? And, that sort of thing. Tell us about your group. Yes, we have chapters around the country, and I think right now it's between 8 and 10. They're listed on our website at thesatanictemple.com. You can also find out more about this specific religious reproductive rights case by visiting religiousreproductiverights.com, and that will also help you figure out how you can get involved or engaged. Yeah, it's remarkable. I remember when Moore and these other crackpots were first, trying to do this, we need a temple on or a Ten Commandments, and I was hoping that a group that would be, marginally offensive is to the wrong word, but that some non-mainstream religion would come out and say, no, wait a minute, we want the goddess Kali, next to the, but no Hindus came out and did it. You guys did it. I am so impressed by what you have done. Jex Blackmore, the reproductive rights spokesperson for the Satanic Temple, the website, thesatanictemple.com, and you can tweet at Jex Blackmore. Jex, thank you. Thank you very much.
Good talking to you.